Good morning. It looks like that we can start just a few minutes early. So, look, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Dave Howden, the CEO and co-founder of Superhuman AI. With more than 2 decades in this sector, Dave's work has consistently focused on unlocking the practical potential and new technologies of AI to solve real business problems. In his extensive experience, he focuses on leadership in cloud services, AI and digital transformation. And I'd just like to say, I know it's not a popularity contest, but by the number of people in the room, I'd say this is by far the most popular breakout session this morning. We want to make it as interactive as possible, so Dave will speak. There's going to be a little panel discussion for here on stage, and then after that, we're trying to leave plenty of time for you to answer questions or ask questions. Easiest, I think, if I just bring the microphone around to you for those. So just hold your hand up and I'll sprint around and we'll get your questions answered. Over to you, Dave.
Cool, thank you, Patrick. Round of applause for Patrick, everyone. Very good introduction, Patrick, but I will say you are misinformed. It is a popularity contest. So thank you all for coming. Okay, so we're going to get really into it quite quickly. I want to just ground everyone for a few minutes, and I'll do some more formal introductions to me and the Superhuman team later on, but I want to grab your attention with making sure we're all clear why we're here in the room today. I mentioned this at the Turbo pitches that ultimately, and this sounds quite brutal, but humans, we are limited by things called biology, fingers, eyes, legs. We can only do so much. And there comes a time when doing things the same way we've always done them, limited by those digital digits that we have on our hands and our eyes, just becomes tedious and not good for what we're actually here to do in business. And today, we're going to take a bit of a walk through people in the room, people that look just like you, that are making quite significant strides in unlocking the link between human biology and what it means to actually operate a PTE and solve 2 main problems around not just the administration of being a training organisation, but actually solving this issue of student engagement or the disengagement of students, given the amount of dopamine that floats around with your learners as they're coming through. So before we get into it, here's a bit of an ask. I'm going to really give all my energy for the next 30 or so minutes to make sure you get exactly what you need. I ask that you guys do too. So I know it's tempting. Let's try and stay off the digital devices. Instagram will still be there later. So let's get into it. If you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to cut me off, jump in. It's not me talking to you guys. I really want this to be engaging. And we're going to get to it as well. And the good news is it's not just going to be me for the next half an hour. We're also bringing on some PTEs onto the stage as well, who are also engaging in this technology and commercializing this as part of their work. Sound good? Yes, Dave, sounds good. Okay, perfect. So, free your PTE from tedious work. What better way to start with a story about a 40-year-old called Dave Howden, who 40 years ago looked like this. This is me. I'm just under 1 year old. I think in a time where life was probably a little bit simpler. I don't remember it because, I was there in the picture. But ultimately, why am I showing you a cute picture of me from 40 years ago? Well, since this picture was taken, we've seen technology come into your industry in all shapes and sizes. This was pre-personal computer, pre the internet, pre the cloud, pre-Instagram, pre-AI. And yet, all of those opportunities that those technologies created, they really have one thing in common, which was they are a force amplifier for change. They're a force amplifier for doing things quicker, faster, better, and relieving us from something that we couldn't do before. And these technologies, they existed pre this photo. And really, the reason I'm showing you this is that I wasn't cognizant of the technologies at the time because I was only 1 year old. But I started to become cognizant of the power of the technologies a little bit later when this photo was taken. Not this photo. I may have skipped ahead. Oh, here we go. Hang on, start again. So, when I first moved into the workforce, the internet was the thing. It was AOL, it was personal computing, and what did the internet really did for everybody was, I say this with the greatest respect to that technological movement, it really just connected the world. All it did was connect the world. And you look at what happened on the back of just connecting everybody together, we've seen the greatest wealth transfer in history. We've seen the birth of thousands of businesses that now dwarf the industries that were around in the Industrial Revolution. And it essentially, the internet changed the world. Now, from where we sit, whilst the internet was cool, AI is going to dwarf that change. Now, what does that mean? It means, well, we had the biggest technological shift that happened over 20 years, and now we have something at our fingertips that could unshackle us from the biological limits of doing work. But if all the internet did was connect us together, and now we have something that can do that promise of separating us from the tedious nature of human labor, just think how that can be operationalized and put to work to free the human mind from the stuff that we weren't designed to do. Now, why do I care so much about this? Now, this picture was taken 17 years later. This is me, 17, 18 years old, pretty handsome fellow. Thanks. Yep. There's cash under your seat for that comment, thank you. But this photo is pretty important to me. The lady on the left, this is my best friend Jill. We grew up together. She's lived at the house next door to me. And our families were really, really close. We grew up from the age of 2 or 3 years old all the way through our lives. And unfortunately, Jill's no longer with us. She passed away when she was 33 years old from bowel cancer. She was a victim of tedious work. She was a victim of the National Health Service getting caught up in administrative paperwork, which meant to delay treatment, which meant mistreatment, and ultimately, retrospectively, she would have a survivable scenario which became unsurvivable because of the tedious nature of how the healthcare system was administered, which essentially means, you know, her family, her children have no longer got a mother. That's not great. Now, I'm not doing this to say a sob story. People will come into the world, they leave the world. The important thing here is this is an extreme example of where technology has not been leveraged and could have significantly had massive impact on the world. So, since I started to figure out the impact of how technology could help in these situations, I actually started my whole career journey finding technologies such as the cloud, the internet, and other services that once you bundle them together and put them into an industry, they can have transformational change. That's why we've dedicated the whole team at Superhuman to supporting the tertiary education sector, specifically with PTEs, to free you from the tedious nature of NZQA compliance, writing assessments, dealing with funding, student coaching, assessments, moderation, verification. Anything where you're applying human capital to running your organisation should not be necessarily computationally done by a human, but should be done by other means. Okay. We will get there. Technology is good, but it's not that good. So ultimately, there must be a better way to work. Now, pop quiz, real quick one. Can anybody guess where this photo is from? Panama Canal. Panama Canal started in 1881. It took 40 years to build. 2 attempts at building it because they failed the first time round. Over those 40 years, 75,000 people manually dug a canal 82 kilometers long. Wow. In that process, 30,000 of them died. The biggest, dangerous, most deathly engineering project in history. Now, if there is ever an example of tedious work, it's digging a hole for 82 kilometers. I would not advise doing that. Now, what happened post that was technology came in and we got excavation, we got hydraulics, and things came a little bit easier. Again, another extreme example of where technology applied removes that. We are in a very similar situation today in tertiary education, where the equivalent of you guys digging the Panama Canal is managing hundreds of units and skills standards and managing assessments and generating study resources and materials, all of those things will feel like you're digging your own Panama Canal once you realize that there is technology that can do it for you. So this is me, I'm a superhuman CEO, and the belief system from all these stories that I say is that without AI-assisted work, you essentially are missing out on opportunities to do things you actually put onto the planet to achieve, which is ultimately grow your organizations, meet learner outcomes, and grow the education system for the betterment of New Zealand. Because ultimately, as private training establishments, you're here to make benefit to your shareholders and create learner outcomes on the way. The question that we ask a lot of the time is, given what you now know, what you've seen over the last few days and what people are doing with this technology, can you actually genuinely see a scenario in a year, 2 years' time, where you're actually paying people and contractors to write content for your assessments, giving formative or summative feedback, even doing assessments, student coaching? If you can see that world, those around you are already investing in that world not being in existence anymore. Now that is a scary thing. It is also the reality of what we're stepping into over the course of the next couple of years. And we're here to make that real for you guys. Okay, so why do you care? 3 things: growth, efficiency, and risk. As leaders in this sector, specifically from an executive perspective, you are paid predominantly to deliver these 3 things. Grow your organization, be efficient with your human capital, and make sure you don't end up on the front page of the Herald. That is it. The byproduct of that is people that are educated and people paying for the execution of that. It just so happens that AI is very, very good at supporting growth through being hyper efficient and actually executing the work in your organization with greater quality than the people inside of it. Now, that does not mean that there's not value for the people. It just means your authoritative position in the sector is the brand value that drives that success. And when you can put a force amplifier across these 3 things, it's actually irresponsible in a sense to not lean into it, because you can't grow your business without some of these technologies. Can you operate a PT without the internet? No. Without e-learning? No. Without computing? Absolutely not. This is just going to feel a lot faster than it was previously. So, just a reminder to keep the pace up. I want to introduce you to an organisation that is getting on with this at a rate of knots. Actually, that's a pun, we'll come on to that in a second. But I'm going to cut through this, I don't want to talk about this. I think there's some more important things to talk about. There we go. And this organisation has invested time, energy, effort, and capital into taking their organisation and redesigning it from the ground up so they can support their L&D teams, instructional design, assessment management, and everything that goes into driving the nucleus of a training establishment. And they've done this because there's things that were keeping them up at night. And from an executive perspective, it's fair to say that there's a chunk of things that you worry about on a day-to-day basis around being a training establishment. Keeping your registrations, the rising cost of admin, and the consistent quality across all of your sites. Again, humans aren't great at quality overall. We're pretty consistent, and you'll understand that from your moderations, right? It's very subjective at times. Academic directors, the compliance workload doesn't seem to be going down, and the constant jostling for the consistency of internal moderation, external moderation, around removing that slack from the system, but that is just cost to your organisation. Now, one of the big things that's important for us is just what is the learner in 2025? What does the learner look like in the next 5 years? And from a teaching perspective and a training perspective, we are entering into a very interesting world where the expectations of learners are going to be dramatically different from what's happened over the last decade. And understanding that we're going to need to transform how we deliver that through different means and keeping learners engaged. What this means in practicality is, if you apply technology to supporting the reduction of administrative costs, driving up accuracy and consistency of the things that you create to deliver your work, and you give students an environment where they can engage with your organisation in an intelligent way, which is supported by humans but actually activated through intelligence, you end up in a world where your human capital needs are not to administer the business, but they're there to support learners and where they actually are needed, which is high high use cases, as opposed to just operating your organisation. Okay. Boiling that down, the world's not getting easier to stay compliant. We need to figure out a way to engage learners in a modern way and scale delivery. But the problems aren't going away. NZQA compliance is both expensive and slow to administer. Managing your assessments and study materials is slow and expensive to do. And keeping your teams engaged with students is becoming an ever-chasing battle. Now, in terms of organisations that are stepping forward into this space, I want to introduce you to Mast Academy. Mast Academy, based in Auckland, represent the gold standard of boat building and textiles within the marine industry, and is the global shining representation about how to lead in that space, and they're now an example internationally about how to lead in using technology to solve for modern L&D, modern assessment design, and delivering student engagement. So we're going to tell you their story, and then we're going to invite Chris from Mast Academy on stage to do a few Q&A. So let's get into it.
Hi, I'm Chris Vanderhoor, Chief Executive for Mast Academy. I have the privilege of leading New Zealand's most premier training facility for a provider for the marine industry, as well as the composite industry and the advanced textiles.
Kia ora, my name is Fiona and I have been a technical writer for Mast Academy for the past 9 years. That involves taking the NZQA unit standard, developing an assessment from it that is at the level and at the right version, and then from that assessment we actually develop a study guide to help support the learners to complete that assessment.
A real challenge for ourselves as an organisation and any other organisation that's a provider is that we currently have around 400 standards that we work with. So every time we need to review or develop a new program, we need to develop those resources as well. We have to meet a certain standard to maintain the outcomes.
When it comes to the study guide, that can easily take 4 to 6 weeks from scratch just to create the content for that.
AI, through superhuman or Mast intelligence as we're calling it, it knows the unit standards that is registered with NZQA, it knows the assessment outcome, and it knows all the learning resource inside that for the learner. So the really icing on the cake is that we can actually now lift the learning outcomes for all our apprentices and learners that are engaged in our programs, because they now have a tool that they can access.
Okay, Mast Intelligence has been an absolute game changer. It's made my life so much easier. What used to take me 4 to 6 weeks now can be created in a matter of minutes.
This is really going to open up and provide tremendous benefit to learners, where the functionality through Mast Intelligence and the AI capability is really going to lift and change the thing. It's also going to put New Zealand on the map with training and learning outcomes.
Another benefit is that it frees up our time. We now have more time to be able to teach or work with our learners.
But I'm really excited for Mast being able to lead this and take it forward for industry. And I'm a strong believer that I think we're only on the beginning of this path, because I think collaborating with Superhuman AI and the team that are super excited about the possibilities, about all the other features that we can add.
Great stuff. The interesting thing here, and before Chris comes up on stage, we are talking about industrialised intelligence for PTEs in the tertiary sector. This is very, very far away from consumer grade intelligence. This is the commercialisation of things you saw yesterday, and building upon those same technologies, but really focusing on industrialising to move the problem away from the prompter, moving everything into a system. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Chris Vanderhoor from Mast Academy to the stage for a quick panel. Good stuff. Well, thank you, Chris, for joining us. I've done my very best to prepare some questions for you, but I'm not very good at staying on script. So we'll give it a go. So, Chris, this will come across as a little bit preconceived, because obviously I'm very much aware of the work that you've done with us. But at what point, pre-engaging with Superhuman, did you go, look, there's an opportunity here to rethink how courses and programs and standards were managed for Mast?
As a provider, all of us are responsible for assisting people to develop the skills and knowledge so they can build successful lives, which in turn build successful businesses. The outcome of those skills and knowledge is really the qualifications that underpin it. That's what the vehicle is. But the Achilles heel for us has always been that it may take 1 or 2 years to develop a qualification, but you still need to write the program, resource it before you can actually deliver it to industry and learners so they can benefit from those skills and knowledge that you did, which is the latest there. So we've, since switching from an OTA to a PTE 4 years ago, we've developed some new programs, we've reviewed some, we've done micro-credentials, and it got to the point where we had 2 good technical writers. One was my wife, you'll see there, a very smart woman with 2 degrees. But what we found was that we had 85 resources that we wanted, and all our learners have been brought up on the basis that we always provide the assessment and a learning study guide, so they have the relevant information at the right level and embedded with literacy and numeracy, so we want them to understand what the practical things that they're doing. So 85 based on the average of 4 to 6 weeks to create one with 2 technical writers, which get paid quite well. We're looking at a 5-6 year journey just for those, let alone the review of 400. So 2 things was speed to market. How do we get the right material and programs to industry? And secondly was the cost sort of thing. So
Good stuff. There'll be definitely questions in the room percolating around like the regulator side of things. So just talk us through about how you've approached and we've collectively approached the NZQA standards and compliance elements of this and making sure they're baked into everything that you do, and how core that was to your thinking.
Well, it's critical because you're always, when you make changes with standards, you need to update all your material. The beauty with this is that it's still peer reviewed, it's still moderated. So once a skill standard or a unit standard has been signed off and is on the framework, we know that's correct. AI can pull that and generate an assessment. The internal team will have a quick look at it, and very quickly we can send it to the WDC or the new ISPs, and we can get it moderated, approved, and then it just generates the resource from that, which once again gets peer reviewed. We have industry experts that go over it, and that way we know the information's correct. And the whole point was, as I alluded to, is that with Mast Intelligence, it's a closed box.
Sorry, Chris. I'm trying to actually show you what you're talking about. I've got it here to show you. As we talk about the closed box, the box breaks.
So you want to protect your IP for all the stuff that you have. You don't want to use OpenAI. We use OpenAI and played around and experimented. It's all over the place. It's not consistent. We needed something that was very consistent. So once it's all peer reviewed and approved, it goes into the Mast Intelligence framework, and there it supports the team, supports the learners.
Yeah. Well, so talking of Mast Intelligence, this is the journey that Superhuman and Mast have been on, and this is Mast Intelligence behind us. I'll duck so you can kind of see what's going on. But this is that journey that Mast have been on of building this Mast Intelligence, leveraging the Superhuman platform. Assessment generation, assessment updating, and a move to study guide creation has been the first part of the journey. The next part of the journey is dealing with student engagement and student coaching, which will be an advancement of Mast Intelligence, which is currently underway. So talk us through your vision around that.
Well, the challenge I gave Dave was the first one was, can AI understand the skill and unit standard? Can it create an assessment at the right level and the right template? And he said yes, and I said, what about creating the learning resources? Yes, we think we can build that. And I went, well, hang on a minute, if we can do all that, and it's all in Mast Intelligence, then the learners have a personal coach, right, that they can go to, they can check their assessments, and if it's, we're working around the language to make sure it doesn't meet, assessment criteria. We're trying to send it back to Mast Intelligence, they'll have a go at it, but basically imagine every learner, regardless of their vocation, background, having their own personal coach. So for me is that if we can get the learners more engaged, feel that they're supported, and lift their learning outcomes, then everybody wins in the equation.
I mean, we can definitely see a scenario where, right now there's a lot of, the medium of consumption is, written and moving to tables and multi-choice questions, but with the advance of these technologies, we can really start to look at how that coach can collect evidence, both orally, visually, and text, multiple choice, all in one single flow to support both formative and summative. And like it's been great to go on the journey with the team at Mast Academy, and there's been fast follows with many of you others in the room as well that are also engaging on this journey with the technologies that we're building in collaboration with the team at Mast Academy as an industry partnership that we formed earlier on this year. Where do you see this going, Chris, on a macro view about where the sector's going to be leveraging these technologies in the next couple of years?
I think, as Dave alluded to, the technology is just super fast moving. I'm glad that we've partnered very early on this journey and going it. I think the team and myself and everyone else will be, I think what we see today and what we develop today will not look the same in probably 1 to 2 years' time. We'll be checking with the learners how we can support them more. We're looking to support our industry, our workplace trainers, the whole thing. So there's a whole avenue of scope of work that we've identified that we can actually move into and change the whole industry. What it won't change is the fundamental way boats are built and the job is done and everything else. But if you can give the learners the real confidence with a student coach, right, their own personal person that they can go to for answers, questions, explain, show me, then that's a real winner. We're still going to provide the same pastoral care that we've always done when we visit them, either in our campus, but online. They basically support it at work. They've got the workplace trainer in our team as well. So.
Good stuff. Okay, well, perfect. Look, Chris, it's nothing better than having you come and sharing your stories with us, and I appreciate we've been double stacking to give you guys a sense of what's been built as well in the background. But Chris, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Hope you've not got too much of a dusty hangover from last night. Sounds like you weren't one of those ones who had had James's, what was it, first night lurgy or whatever he referred to it as?
No, blame Kate for that one.
No, that's right, okay. Round of applause for Chris, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
We're not talking about proof of concepts or trials here. We're industrialise these technologies for production, commercial consumption, and this is what is live now with Mast Academy supporting their journey as we go. If there are any questions that pop up, do feel free to throw up. We've got a couple of minutes and then we'll get into questions. Okay, so what does that mean? Intelligence for your organisation, commercial grade, that is battle tested in industry for use across learning development teams and anyone within quality assurance, rapidly moving to coaching. Built for NZQA, regulated PTEs. This is the industrial strength intelligence that builds on top of the commercial grade intelligence that you will have been using as part of your testing and your experimentation. And this is readily available in production now for your PTE. So we're very much excited, to those of you who engaged with us already, to see how this can be supported in your development journey. What does that mean in practicality? It's AI workspace, look like Mast Academy, that is integrated to your LMS, designed to build the essence of assessments for formative and summative underlying study resources that support those in all modalities, from text, image, and then rapidly moving into video and presentations, PDF output, Word output, SCORM packages, anything that's required to engage with your learners. On the back of that, quality assurance of assessors coming in, because we understand the unit standard and the performance criteria and the assessment. We can then do quality assurance back on those assessments as well to essentially do pre-moderation for you and internal assessment moderation for you. And then rapidly fast following is student coaching, which is taking the power of that and providing an intuitive student coach that's there to provide formative feedback on assessment evidence collection to grade on the sense of a formative grade, so you can take students on the journey. And while we integrate with the LMS, it's important to signpost people back to the learning materials of where they're in a non-competent or a not achieved state, so we can continue on the learning journey. This is level one. It's early days, but we are out there and making it happen. And this is no longer theory. This is making its way to the coalface, and it is in the coalface right now. Okay, I've just talked about that. So, before we move to questions, this is 40 years on from the 1985, very early on. This is Mac Bear Howden, what a cool name. And I wanted to call him Bear, but it was too progressive, and in the Kiwi accent it's beer. So That wasn't appropriate. But Mac was born in February this year. When he's my age, I can't even conceive what the world is going to be, look, and feel like. And do I want to be here for that? I'm kind of curious. Part of me is like, no, I don't want to be here for that. But the reality is this is a journey that the human race is going to go on, regardless, because of how economies turn. And therefore, my ask of you is to lean into the uncomfortable nature of that and realize that there is a lot of progression there. And we look forward to going on the journey and making sure that good old Mac here, who's now 7 months old, still has a vocational education system to lean into. Probably a lot of us might want to be around then. But I look forward to kind of creating the future for this little guy and figuring out where we go from there. But if you take nothing more from today, appreciate the cute photos, and then we'll move into Q&A. As a parting gift, before we do get into this, we are leaning into supporting PTEs with walking into your organisation, helping figure out where this technology can be applied. This is for ITENZ members only, but do feel free to engage with us on that regardless. So on a free basis, we'll come and sit down, speak to you guys, work through and help you build out a little bit of a strategy about how we can apply this technology into your organisational design and your engineering. This is led by the team of 30 people based in Auckland, that all they do is focus on this sector, this work, and unlocking this for you guys. Now, with the very few minutes left, I'd like to open it for questions and hand over to Patrick, but thank you very much for your attention, guys.
All right.
There is a Slido if you're not comfortable speaking out, you don't have the ability to speak out, but also Patrick is roving with the mic as well.
Thank you for that. I appreciate the value of building in the structure that's common to us all in the regulatory environment. But could you kind of elaborate a little bit more on how individual PTEs can kind of build in a consistency and subject matter expertise, so that when you have your same approach even across multiple standards, how you're teaching and incorporating?
Very good question. So what we didn't actually talk about with Chris's implementation is that the intellectual property of that PTE and its knowledge, which is written by the subject matter experts, is in their knowledge environment. So that knowledge environment for Mast Academy is in SharePoint, but it could be in your LMS, Google Drive, Moodle. That subject matter expertise, that IP, is training material for the intelligence. So there's three things that are really important to consider. One is your intellectual property, which is that piece. Then there's the stuff that's not intellectual property, but is useful, which is world knowledge. So just stuff that the world knows that you don't need to reinvent. And then there's things that your regulatory bodies create for you, and those regulatory bodies being, yes, NZQA, but more importantly, the government, because there's just things like work safe, legislation, working at height practices, all those things that you're not going to rewrite. It's world knowledge, but you want it New Zealand Pacific. So the knowledge base that's drawn upon to build this intelligence is based on those three things: proprietary, New Zealand specific data sets, government data sets and industry data sets, and then thirdly, world knowledge, which is just essentially language and everything else that's useful to make the things stitch together. Good question though, because we didn't touch on that. Thank you for that.
Anyone else? I think we've probably only got time for one other question. Anyone?
No?
No?
Okie dokie, good stuff. Well, guys, I just wanted to thank you very much for leaning into this. There's a lot to unpack there. As you can see, it's a complex topic, and we're impacting some quite significant areas of organisations. So if you're interested in taking a conversation further, just feel free to reach out to us, or the rest of the Superhuman team. Kia ora, thank you very much for your engagement. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Just look, obviously we work in an industry with constant change. We're about to move to skill standards, for goodness sake, from unit standards. So to have a platform that can help us be more efficient, it's just going to be a game changer. Yeah, thank you. So, thank you. Look, Dave's obviously just round by the coffee cart, perfect place. As you grab your coffee, go and have a chat to him and get some more information that's probably a little bit more specific to just your organisation rather than everyone. But for now, we're off to our next round of breakout sessions, which will start at 11:15. So, obviously